Okay, it looks like we are live. Hello, Facebook
Hello,
community.
Facebook.
Nice to see you as always. It's Wednesday. That means we have a live going on today. Let
Mhm.
me just, make sure it's doing what it's doing and give you a chance to share it and give people a chance to come in. And let me, oh, shut up, Jesse. Um, so don't subconsciously absorb that. There we go. And I posted a link in the description for the group where all the cool parents are hanging out. And that's the Conscious Parent Leaders group. So thank you, Facebook. Welcome to another conversation with Karolis and me. And what we are doing in these series of videos, in these series of conversations, is really documenting our journey and our experiences in our personal development and how that's affecting us as parents so that we can really raise aware kids, conscious children, confident children to be successful and really carry on a legacy and recreate our story, our family story. And today we're starting in in not really the beginning. Last week we talked about the beginning in the womb, but this is the first stages in this world. So Karolis, how are you?
Thank you, Jesse. I'm doing great, and I'm having very productive time. We just like had the very short conversation. I watched the summary of what Jesse sent me, and that summary was about the challenge that we're planning to announce for you every single day, bit by bit, and it will be real revolution. So as Jesse already told you, we are here to document our journey. So it's not about just about the professional side of the journey, it's about our personal side of the journey. As parents, we are both. Jesse is a co-parent at the current space. I'm a current parent. I'm in a relationship, and this different experiences, our different lifespan, it brings that unique angle to what we deliver in our lives. So, and I would like to say that it's not just, uh, don't think that the legacy is just a fancy word. It's we're talking about the alpha generation. That alpha generation is the real alpha generation, not something alpha, but real alpha. Conscious, aware, self-perfected people, self-perfected kids, self-aware, self-developing, self-realized kids that are driving the force of real world change, that brings the harmony and maybe generations of peace. That's what our aim should be. So I know that Jesse is a great example of how parenting leadership should be positioned. And today we're gonna go from the first stages, from not the first stages as Jesse said. First stages was last week, in the womb, but today we're gonna speak about first years. So yeah, let's roll.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the challenge that Karolis talked about is this 5-day challenge that we're going to show you how to specifically create a plan. Like, create a plan. Raising self aware kids and confident kids doesn't just happen. It should, but it doesn't, because there are so many external factors bombarding them from us, if we're being honest, when we yell at them, when we lose our temper, when we are not conscious, but also from teachers, from friends' parents. All of our surroundings are influencing and this is what we're going to talk about today, influencing their little minds at 0 to 5 years old. That's when they're being, 7 years old, really. That's when they are being programmed to become the people and to have the identity that they have. So we have to be intentional with how we are raising them, to raise them to be self-aware, like Karolis was explaining. So That's what we're gonna talk about
So
today.
is it maybe that was your first one, the intention?
I touched on no, but you know what? It should have been.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh.
I well, it kind of like awareness first. So that's kind of like my first. I'll get into mine first. My first one is awareness. um, because I believe that we have to have awareness before being intentional. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and when I say awareness, I mean awareness of this powerful time of life, which I just recently became aware of, like within the past several years, couple years. And I wasn't aware of how instrumental these first 5, 7 years are, because what we program into their minds is the identity that our kids, and not even our kids, let's say us, the identity that we take on as human beings. So things like you're so bad, quit being so bad. When you say that, like in your minds, you are trying to motivate them to not be bad anymore. But to a little sponge that holds on to those words, they're shaping their identity, right? When they say, be quiet right now. Like you mean maybe like I'm tired, I'm doing something else right now, but those words are shaping into their identity. Be quiet, my voice doesn't matter, right? So we want to implant and program and become aware of how powerful these first 7 years are, and program them with the identity that we want them to have.
Indeed. Indeed.
And that's why we're doing what we're doing today. And in general.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It just Jesse touched the first 7 years basically, and I completely agree with this term of 7 years because as we like example with Dr. Zuzana Faitzak, we teach on the terms of 0 to 7, 7 to 14, and 14 to 21. So it's basically a trauma pattern and its integration. But my 3 points will be about the period. It can be like it is matched to overall well-being and to overall development of the child from over the years. But I'm aiming to share my
Uh-oh.
moms. We back.
Karolis got disconnected for a second. We will. Okay, you're back.
We back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Cool. So I will share my observations from first 3 months of my baby life and what I continuously develop and what I noticed. So my first thing will be observation. So it's observe and maintain stillness, because that's why I told you, Jesse, that it's I want to highlight the first year, because when a child is 3 years old and he has a emotional tantrum, like you can wait a little bit and have a conversation about this. Try to have a conversation with a hungry baby. He will tell you nam nam. That's it. He wants nam nam, even if he can pronounce that accidentally.
Yes.
But yes, observe and be still, because baby body language and the sounds they release, they kind of talking to you.
Yeah.
And if you will listen to your baby patterns, they kind of react the same way always. So mine is like having a fist, putting in the mouth, and you could think maybe that's teeth. Like in the beginning, he's very small, but that was a sign he wants to eat. He would do this. Then when he's having a discomfort, he has a different sound, like like all these things. You starting to notice the pattern. And when the child is having a tummy time, let's say, you can't become stressful that it hurts, let's say. Yeah. But does it change anything? Do you think like your stress that it hurts for him, does it help him? Or
Wait,
It
time
oh,
out.
oh, oh,
Can you say that again? You kind of broke up there for a little second. Can you say that last sentence again?
so let's say your baby having a tummy time, and do you think that you stressing about his pain helping him?
Mm,
I don't think so. I
no.
think that your stress, that you what you're feeling, your child is feeling as well. And
Yeah.
you should be as a professional. That's gonna sound maybe in a way, but you should be still in a professional way as a parent.
Mm,
Because what you can do, when our baby had tummy time, my actions would be, so the feet massage immediately, the tummy massage immediately. So the straight line, corners, little pushes, little bicycle moves with legs, and then we see the release. Sooner or later, and that crying can be sometimes, touching some nerve, but that's where your self-awareness comes in, as Jesse mentioned. Why does it make me feel nervous? And what I got in a couple of my clients, it's not having the control, not having a say about it. Because
mm.
when a child is 3 or 4 years old, you can, if you're that kind of a parent, you can raise your voice, and yeah, they may potentially react to that. Maybe they're gonna have a habit that they will stop the tantrum when you raise the voice because they need that stress already. So, in my observations, the inability to control the situation when the baby is expressing himself, that's what makes your nerve go in. So that's a full acceptance and ability to be still during the times of chaos.
That's awesome. Okay.
What's your
Um,
second one?
my second one. By the way, I love that you're doing that, and I know when we chatted, you said 0 to 1, and I bumped it up to 0 to 5 or 0 to 7 even, because we are all kind of like in different stages, and you have a very when you're in that stage. I was just looking at a baby the other day, and I was thinking, man, like once you get out of that baby stage, you see it in a whole different light. So when my children were babies, I could see a baby and identify how many months they were. Like that's it's just like that superpower. It's that biological, like you have a comparison. The further you get out of that, like I can't do that now, So like I love it that we're bringing in two different perspectives to share to people where they are.
I just want to share that it's very crucial period for your child because it's millions of neurons every day being formed in his brain. And I recently observed my baby became very, very active with his eyes, and he became very specific with his eyes. So he identifies, and he's capturing that. So I started to understand how important is your environment. How important, do you have like a horse around your house? Maybe it's a mess in your house. How does that chaos affect your child? What it forms in his neurons. We can't answer that like very easily. To base it by science, it's very hard to say that. But uh, I believe that's the crucial period, and you should be really dedicated. Like, I have a full-time business. I consult people, I run my own business, and it takes time. Sometimes, over 12 hours a day can be, if I'm very busy and I need to travel from one place to another. But I was willing to sacrifice my deals. I was willing to extend my schedule in other days, like to make it longer, book in advance, just so I can spend time in the morning and evening with my baby. Because
Mm,
I want to be part of it, so I'm aware. So I'm aware about what's happening, because I will not be able to repeat this time. That's
yes,
really important to understand. You will
you can't
not
get
be
it back.
able to repeat that. For this child, it's one in a life opportunity, and you have to be responsible.
Yes, uh, you can't get these years back. This isn't my second point, but it kind of goes in line with a post that I shared the other day. You know, nobody wants to be the parent from the Cats in the Cradle, the song Cats in the Cradle. Man, that's a song that makes me cry every single time. And nobody wants to be that. And to your point, I do that too. I schedule my heavy workloads when they're not here. And it's so important. And there's always a way, right? It's like,
Always.
where are your priorities, you know? And it's funny listening to you about infants, going back to my first point. Like, I wish I was a little more aware, like in the first baby years, right? To handle things a little differently. That goes on to that actually leads into my third point. But we'll get that later.
So if that leads directly, you can hit it. Or you want to leave it? Yeah, cool.
Let's do that. Let's imagine, like, well, I didn't create the slide here. Release the guilt. You know, maybe you're a parent and maybe your children are teens and maybe you weren't aware of this. Maybe you had you were missing, you were at work on business a lot, you were yelling a lot or whatever, right? You're like, God, I missed these years. Now they're screwed, but they're not, right? So release the guilt. Parenting guilt is a real thing. I experience it. I experienced it. I shared a story in the email the other day. I experienced it, and in the group, I shared this on Monday, or no, last Friday. I experienced this. You know, you just have a spat, and then you're left all day with that last, interaction, and you just feel guilty. You're like, how could I have handled that differently? But it's so important to release the guilt. I've actually created a workshop. I have a free workshop if anyone wants me to send it to you, on how to manage and release parenting guilt so that you can move on for yourself, but ultimately for your kids as well. And because the only thing that will result in feeling guilty about missing those years is missing the present time as well.
While you're feeling guilty about the past.
Exactly. While you're feeling guilty, you're busy. Your mind is busy feeling guilty about the past. Then the present moment, you're making bad decisions because you're feeling bad about something that happened in the past, rather than be in the present moment to see, how can we turn this loss into a win? That's one of my things that I help clients with. And because it's been so powerful to me, how can I turn this loss into a win? How can I change this relationship? How can I, in the present moment, how can I shape this to be helpful? And guilt is the exact opposite of that. So release the guilt. If you've missed this, if they're like 5, 7, 8, 9 years old, and you're like, man, I missed the infant years with this awareness. Me too. So stay in the guilt. Maybe you're in a teenage years, right? And you're like, my teenager, they're just so closed off. They're so distant. Okay. Maybe it's because you were absent on business. Maybe it's because you lost your temper. Maybe it's because you were an alcoholic. Maybe it's because, whatever. What can you do now? Start now. Today is day 1, right? What can you do now to repair that relationship just a little bit? Because it won't take as much as you think, because your child wants a relationship and a connection with you as well.
It's kind of strongly goes along the way with my second one. And because action doesn't happen in the past, it happens now. And my second one is action and communication. And I will try to, fit into 0 to 7, but I will of course start from my current position, because this time I'm really sharing my current situation. So there are patterns that you can as well, like, consciously integrate into your child. So we have several keywords that are really helping us to communicate with them and We already recently started to achieve that he's giving as a hand and consciously understands that he needs to take the hand, you know. So that was like very beautiful.
That's a
I was
magical
playing a
moment.
guitar for him. I don't know I shared on the last live or not, but I started a habit of playing a guitar.
That's
I've
awesome.
always dreamed about that. And what I started to do, I started to learn like few accords of Bon Jovi, "It's My Life," and one of the lullabies, you know, tun 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 tun. Like I will show when I learn.
That's so
So
cool.
yeah, and I'm, you know, learning a bit, and sometimes, you know, I'm just improvising, and I have a swinging chair for him, and I always take the baby in the morning. So and he's not sleeping. He's a 5 a.m. guy.
Uh-oh. Karolis got disconnected again, and we left off at he's a 5 a.m. baby. That could be rough if you're not an early riser, right? I remember while we're waiting for Karolis to come back, when my son just, it was so hard. He just would not sleep, but not just not sleep, like screaming, crying at the top of his lungs at like 3 a.m. So like I'd end up having to go down and take the stroller, go down into the street and go for a walk with him. And that's the only thing that seemed to put him to sleep. And it was in the moment, it seemed like that time would never end. I remember I told my mom, because I was the same way as a kid. So that's karma coming back to me, but as a baby. But I remember talking to my mom, and I was like, oh, the screams, and then waking up at 4 a.m. to go for a walk. And she's like, oh, I remember that. That sounds familiar. And she said, as like genuine encouragement, she's like, I don't remember that. That didn't end up lasting that long. It was only like 2 years. And I was in the middle of it, like, 2 years? What? So, but it is all perspective. When you're inside of the forest, it feels like it'll never end. When you're inside, you know, going through it, it feels like it'll never end. And just know that it will. So whatever stage you're in, if your children are going to school and they're protesting and that's causing, you know, problems, if they are in a biting stage, a hitting stage, tantrum stage, maybe they're, you know, maybe they're 10 and 11 and they're starting to talk back and fight, or maybe whatever, right? It's a phase. These are phases. These are seasons of life, same as we went through when we were young. And it's easy to say, like, kids say it. They're like, you don't remember what it's like. And you're like, I do, I was there. We don't remember what it's like. We don't remember I remember a little bit about the teenage years. I remember I hated it. You couldn't pay me enough to go back to teenage years, right? I don't really remember what it was like at 10, 11, 12. We don't remember that. We remember a couple, you know, memories maybe, but not that. We can't. There was just so much. 365 complete days, 24 complete hours per day. That's just way too much for our active memory. We store that in the subconscious. And that goes back to the importance of those first 7 years. And then from like 7 to 14, like Karolis said. But we store every memory in our subconscious mind. That shapes our identity. That's the importance of doing our own internal work, going back and healing the children, our inner child that needed someone to be there, that needed to be heard, that needed to be validated. That goes back to our inner child that needed something in our lives, some guidance that maybe we didn't get, right? And regardless of the upbringing, how great your parents are or whatever, there's always something that was limiting in our upbringing, right? That's just human nature. So it's a matter of reprogramming that. And that's what today's conversation is about. And I'm not sure, something happened with his connection. Maybe he'll come back, maybe he won't. But let me get to my third point. And my third point is lead them to where you want them to be. And that's active. It's the difference between active and reactive. If you're in sports, right? American football or European football, whatever, you pass the ball. You don't pass the ball to where your teammate is. You don't pass the ball to them. You pass the ball ahead to where they are going to be, right? And same thing with throwing the ball. The receiver's running. You pass the ball to where you want them to be, not to where they are. And it's the same thing as a leader and as a family leader, right? You pass the ball, you lead them to where you want them to be. So you don't react. That's passing the ball to where they are. That's going back, right? Let's imagine a receiver going in to make a cut. You throw the ball when they're here and you want to throw it to where they are. You're reacting to your child based on what they've done rather than looking ahead. Then the ball, it's not a reception, right? They don't catch the ball because they're not there. But if we look at as a parent to our child, that we want to lead them. If they've, done something bad. I made a post the other day, consequences versus punishment, right? Punishment is throwing the ball to where they are. That's addressing the thing that was already done in the past. Consequences teach them about that, passes it to where they're going to be. So we don't want to react. Reacting is going backwards. Reacting is looking and adding more pressure on the thing that they did or didn't do. It's not correction. It's not corrective. It's focused more on guilt. It's focused more on negative feeling, right? So that's the difference. We want to lead to where we want them to be. So how do we do that? Right? We want them to be kind. We have to demonstrate kindness to them and to others. You don't, yell at other people on the road, right? That's not acting in kindness. And then expect them to have patience toward their friends, right? You don't yell at them and expect them not to yell at other people. You don't, you don't yell at other people and expect them to speak kindly to other people. You don't criticize things and expect them not to be critical. You don't hit them as punishment. You don't hit them. Let's use another word, abusive. Yeah. And then expect them not to hit others. You're leading by example, whether you consciously do it or not. They are following your example. So lead them to where you want them to be. Be leaders. Lead by example, and they will follow suit. Because I love the Ed Milet quote: "With kids, things are caught more than they're taught." They catch what you're doing. They'll listen to you, even if they ignore you. They'll listen to you, but they follow your actions. And I don't know. I guess something happened with Karolis's connection. I hope everything's okay. But we've been on here for about 30 minutes. That's where I don't like to go much longer than that. I do have another live session later this afternoon, later tonight, my time. And that will be with Yolanda. She's a parenting coach. That will be a very interesting conversation. And I look forward to speaking to her. And That's all. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining us. The link is in the comments to join the group, the Conscious Parent Leaders group, to get information on the challenge coming up. Plus, I'm going to be going live and give practical lessons, like short lessons, not these 30-minute conversations, but shorter lessons to show you my journey of what I've learned that works and doesn't work, so you can take more of what works and less of what doesn't work in your journey. Okay, thank you. I appreciate you, and goodbye.